So yeah, welcome to this introduction to the course that we're working with movement and mindset, and we're going to be working with lying postures and movements in lying poses. My name's Beth, for those of you who haven't met me before, and I've lived with pain for 20 years now after a car accident, and the main places I get pain is here and here. So those would be the pretty much constant, and then it can vary. I can sometimes get sciatica down the other leg. So to start with, if you don't need to verbally tell me where you've got pain, but maybe just put a hand on the place of your body. It might be a shoulder or hip or knee. If you can just give me a bit of an indication where your worst pain might be, and if it's all over, just do this. So it's kind of like it's everywhere, but it kind of gives me an idea, you know. So, Amy, is it all good?
When I saw you last week, it's down here. I'm growing 4 days now. I struggled to
And Trish, which side was it more one side than the other?
Yeah, mostly my right hip and my back on the right as well.
Not anywhere in particular, but all over. And I think that's similar for you, Val, isn't it? So it just gives me a bit of an idea of what might be comfortable and what might be tricky for you to do. And when we do the movements, I'm always going to start off with the most simplest, smallest movement possible, and then you can build from it. So you don't need to do the full movement. And the idea behind this class is quite different to other exercise classes. You're trying to find that edge, the working edge, if you like, where you can feel there's maybe a little bit of a sensation that changes, but it doesn't aggravate. And it's the one thing I didn't get out of that. Sometimes when we stretch our body, we can just put a little bit of a pull in and it feels okay. But what we tend to do is go for the full pull, and then what happens is our body will tighten against that, so you'll get this sort of gripping feeling with your muscles. And often that will happen in places where we don't have the source of pain. So often our body's kind of in this braced, gripping position. And the idea behind this class is to release some of that patterning. So maybe not directly working with the knee joint, but it could be that the knee joint, that being tight, affects other parts. So if one part's really tight, it's all connected, and it can affect other parts. So you might have a problem with your shoulder, but it originates in the knee. So the shoulder might be more mobile, and you can release some of that gripping tightness there. But other parts, you need to respect that a little bit more, maybe do a little bit less with those parts. So that's the idea behind some of the movements. And did have. So is anyone in the no pain, no gain camp? They're like, oh, I'm not going to do it. Got to push through in order to sort out my body. We've got anyone that's maybe in the past. Yeah. So yeah. So it's often we think, well, if it doesn't hurt, it's not going to do anything. So try and forget that as an idea. So you don't want to be pushing into the pain. You want to try and find that boundary. And sometimes when we've got pain, the parts of the body we have lost that kind of mapping. We call it a mapping. So if you have just put your hand down, and if you can, if it feels okay, just find your thumb with your other hand and feel the shape of it. You can feel the nail, the joint where the thumb bends, and maybe the joint at the bottom, the joint where it comes into the hand. So you know your hand really well, but if there's been pain in the hand or in the thumb joint, this, the map of that part of the body might not be as clear. So what we do a lot of the time is remap some of the parts of our body, because there's a disassociation if there's been pain there. So a lot of the movements about mapping what happens with the parts of the body, and also rewiring the nervous system. So sometimes when there's been, or most of the time, when there's been pain in the body, our body will protect that area and it'll be sending signals through the nervous system. It's like, okay, I'm not going to move that. This is dangerous to do this kind of movement. So just by doing tiny little movements, like if you have a little go at moving finger joint, so just tiny little movements is the sort of thing we're going to be doing to help rewire the system, and doing that through lots of parts of the body. And then sometimes parts of our body will only move together. So if you have a go, I'm going to use the hands again. If you have a go at just bringing the, I was thinking I'm putting bringing the thumb out away from your fingers. Probably most of you can do that. Yeah, so that can move independently. See that? Can you move your index finger independent, or does your thumb want to move with it? So sometimes we lose movements, that's okay. Can we separate the middle fingers without the other fingers getting involved? And if you're doing it with your right hand and your left hand's easy to move, you might want to try it with the other hand. And then the little finger, can that move independently? And often, other parts of your hand are moving, they're getting involved with that movement. So it's about being able to move parts of the body independently and then move parts with other parts supporting as well. So we're going to be exploring that as an idea. So that's talking about the movements a little bit. And then the mindset is about often, like, well, how do people feel? If you were to score yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 about how anxious you might be about moving your body today in the class, not knowing, some of you know what to expect because you've been before. Could you hold your fingers up to give me an indication? So anxiety 10 would be like, I feel really anxious about this. And you might not even be here. Or it might be, well, kind of a 2, or like what sort of level of anxiety might there be around moving your body? So we've got a range between 2 and 8, I think. So probably none. Okay.
That's because I've been before.
You've been before, so the people that have been before, you did put your hands up. So you've kind of got an idea of what to expect. But when our brain is anxious about doing something, what we're going to do is brace. We're going to go into a fear response, and we're not going to be as calm in our system. Our body's not going to be as relaxed. So the mindset part is about relaxing the mind, helping you feel safe with the movement, so you don't get this kind of fight or flight kind of response that you might experience if you were anxious about the movement. We get it for all sorts of reasons. Our anxiety levels are so much higher now. As a society, they're a lot higher, even without the pain. So the mindset part is about managing the nervous system in terms of like calming. I'm just going to close the windows. Slightly distracted. So any questions, and I can stop the recording for a moment if anybody does want to ask anything, or if you're ready. So it is a lying class, but thank you for sitting to start, because those of you here at the beginning, I said I think you might fall asleep if I did that intro with you lying down. So we're going to come down to lie on your backs, and you've got in the room, there's a few different props. So there's cushions, there's bolsters. If you struggle to come down to the floor, you might want to use the chair, and usually go down with your backside first, so you might want to go down, and then kind of maneuver yourself onto your back. I'll show you how you want to put a bolster under your knees. And the cushion under your head. So you're trying to find a shape that feels really comfortable for your body. You might want to cushion it under your hips. So there's lots of different props in here if anybody does want anything extra. I think most of the mats have got a couple of mats. Does anyone want a blanket under their body? Do you feel like you can find it? But yeah, finding your way down to lie on the back. for parts I'm going to be sitting up so I can see you, but the parts I'll demonstrate so you can see me. Once you come down onto your back, have a little wriggle around. See if you can find the most comfortable shape for your body. If you ever feel like you want anything extra, just let me know. Yeah, yeah. That's okay. So yeah, just finding a shape that you feel most comfortable in. And notice how you feel as you like. Which parts of your body might actually let go and soften down into the support. Which parts might feel a little tighter, a bit harder to soften. Do really small movement with our foot. So we're going to start whichever side. It doesn't matter if you start left or right, but just have a go at bringing your toes up towards your knees slightly. So you're flexing your foot. I'm going to show you your foot's coming up towards you, just one, and then relaxing the foot down. Bringing your toes towards you and relaxing the foot away. And see how that feels. So a lot of this is going to be really subtle observation. Can you feel what other parts of your body are involved in that movement? Obviously, just do what feels comfortable. Feel how your calf might change shape, how your thigh might engage. Maybe even tracking that up to the glutes, the buttocks. It's really slow, and see if you could slow that movement right down, particularly as you move your foot away, and maybe notice how juddery that movement might be if you do it really slowly. If we're not familiar with it, this is a map that might not be that well written. When we move our foot away slowly, it can be a bit juddery, it can stop for a bit and then carry on. So really slowly moving the foot away. And then we'll swap over to our other foot. Again, just take that movement as far as you choose to. So we're moving our toes away from us, toes towards our knee. And tracking that movement. How does that feel? Can you feel it through your calf? Can you feel how your thigh engages? You might feel it into the buttock. And notice if there's ever a response where your body kind of grips a bit more or tightens a little more. And if you notice that, then you're taking the movement too far. It might sound really ridiculous with like such a small movement, but we're trying to find movement that helps release the body rather than cause this more gripping tightness. And you might already be trying it, but see if you can do that as slowly as possible and notice how juddery that movement might become. And how much control that might require. Difference it is to do it slowly, and then you may be speeding it up, see how easy or tricky that might be. Pointing and flexing. And very relaxing the feet, so taking whatever shape feels comfortable. And yeah, I'm sitting up still so I can see you quite easily. But we're going to have a go, if you can, bringing your feet flat on the floor. So Amy, yeah, you're able to move on the cross. So having your feet flat on the floor and bringing them together so your toes and heels touch. So you can see that what that feels like. You might have your knees together. And then if you can, keep your big toes together, but turn your heels out. So we're going to take our heels out as far as they'll go with our toes touching. And then bring the toes in line with your heels. So already you might be like, oh, I'm not sure how to do this because the map's not that familiar. So I'll talk you through it again. You start with the heels and toes together. We keep our big toes together, turn our heels out, and then see if you can bring the feet in line with the heels. So that for most people, so your big toes will be separate. So Gemma, if you have a go, we're trying to find kind of hip distance with our feet, if that feels okay, yeah. And then turn the toes out to match the heels. Just to show you what. So for most people, that's about hip distance. When I say hip distance, it's about where the balls of your feet are. Yeah. So already, like, don't worry, because like it just when it's kind of part of the reason I'm giving you things you're not familiar with is to reinforce this idea of not necessarily knowing the mapping or like being able to follow the movement sequence. So feet will be about hip width apart, and then just feel if your weight feels quite even through the front and the backs of the feet. If not, you might want to slide them towards you a little bit or maybe further away. And if the weight feels quite even through the left and right foot. So just checking how that is. And then see if it was okay just to press the feet into the ground where they are. So you're just pushing the ground away through your feet and then relaxing and noticing what muscles are engaged now. You might feel it again through your calves, your thighs, you might even feel your glutes. Lightly pressing into the ground. And then extending on that, if you wanted to, as you press down, you might feel your lower back pushing down into the ground slightly. So we're tilting our pelvis ever so slightly. So you push through the feet, pressing the lower back towards the ground. And then relaxing. And you can do this as much or as little as you choose to. So we've got a very small rocking movement of the pelvis, if that feels okay. Some of you have heard me say before, sometimes our body can be a bit like a stiff drawer in a chest of drawers and it just needs a little wiggle. Or these tiny movements can help things release a little. So we're pressing our feet down, back, and doing that a few times. So I can't see much movement, which is right. That's what I should be able to see. So we've got a really small settled movement as you press your feet down and lower back pushes down. And then you might want to change the rhythm of that. If you wanted to, you could speed it up a little. That might be to rock back and forth a little quicker. Or really slow it down. Experimenting with pace. And just connecting in with that connection between the feet, the legs and the pelvis. And then we'll relax. And finding whatever shape you want to go back to. So you might have the bolster under your legs again, whatever support might be there. At the start, I asked you to score your anxiety levels around movement. I'm just curious if you were to like it. I don't like the pain scale 1 to 10, but if 10 was the worst and 1 was like no pain, just think for yourself at the moment where you are and if that might have changed since you walked into the room or if it feels like it's about the same, it might have increased, it might decrease. So just checking in. And through the sessions, I'm going to ask you to check in quite a lot and see if there's any sort of movement might be required to make your body feel a bit more at ease. If even though it's a lying class, if at any point anyone wants to sit up, you can. Find what feels best for you. And then we're going to have a go at gripping our bones. So this is what state our body is often in when we're in pain. It's like everything contracts. So you might want to start just by making fists, feeling like you're curling in, screwing up the face, like really contracting through the body, and then letting things soften and relax. So just going for a whole body contraction. Sometimes I think of like it's like my thigh muscles suck in towards the thighs and then let go and relax. And having a little play with that, contracting your muscles. Letting go. And remember to fully let go. And notice how that is. Notice how your feet to your jaw feel. So often my jaw is one of the places that really tightens. And then we're going to do the opposite. Imagine yourself lying on a massive marshmallow. And like your whole body melts down and softens. So like you've got the softest surface that's supporting against your whole body. And notice how that is. Thinking of those numbers, maybe like 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, if there's a difference in any parts of your body. And the kind of difference I would say is really helpful is about 1% in one area. That's a good difference. We want 100% in 100 areas, 100% of areas. But just a tiny change means that there's scope for things to change. And then we're going to work systematically through our body. If at any point you don't want to contract any area, leave that bit out. But we're going to try curling our toes in. Just curling your toes up. And then engaging our calf muscles. See if you can isolate your calf muscles, just squeezing the calves without anything else getting involved. Noticing if other things get involved, what parts of your body also engage. So we'll get squeezing our thighs. Pulling the muscles in towards the bones. Again, what other parts might engage, where you feel that might track up into your back, maybe down towards your feet. If it feels okay, carrying on squeezing the buttocks together. Again, you can leave any of these or just do a tiny amount of contraction. After squeezing, making sure you let those areas relax, noticing what else is involved when we squeeze our buttocks. And then you might want to place your hands on your belly and just feel your belly draw down to the floor slightly. So we might feel a belly drawing in, pulling down. As you do that, you might feel pelvic floor muscles lift. You might feel other parts of the body engaged, the glutes, the thighs. And then coming up to our shoulders and chest, we're just going to contract in, maybe lifting the shoulders a little, letting them drop. Lifting, contracting, letting them drop. Again, tiny movements are fine. Does anything else get involved? My fingers want to contract when I lift my shoulders. And then second, the upper arms in. Can the upper arms move on that? And the forearms and maybe the hands move together. Contracting, relaxing. And you can do this slowly or quickly. And then finally coming up to the throat and jaw, noticing how tight that is. If you wanted to, you could tighten it a little more, but you might not need to. And see if there's any scope for that area to soften and relax. Sometimes just by placing our tongue in a different position, so putting the tongue behind the top teeth, help our jaw relax. And noticing that might be. And finally, screwing up the face a little, the eyes tightening, and then releasing, relaxing So feeling the forehead get bigger, the cheeks expand. Pulsing between that contraction. And then letting that go again. Drop, relax as best your body's able to in this moment. And whenever we're doing this, some of the mindset stuff is reprogramming the mind, because it'll focus on what feels uncomfortable and what feels or our attention's drawn towards the negative things. So we've got this negativity bias. So even if you spend a second away from those parts, then that's a good thing. But if you get drawn back, don't worry. There'll be strong pulls on your attention. It will be training our mind to focus away from some of those strong pulls. And we're going to do just another exercise with our imagination. So this time I'm going to ask you to imagine some warm massage oil. So imagine it in your palm and think about, like, give it as much detail as possible. Has it got a smell? How thick is it? What kind of temperature might it be? What sort of texture would it be? And then imagine yourself taking that balm and massaging it into one of the places in your body where you're experiencing tightness, contraction. And this, our imagination is incredible. We don't have to stay on the surface of our body. We can go really deep to any part of your body. Imagining this oil maybe trickling its way through or being rubbed into that area. And you may experience a change. If you want to try it in a few different spots in the body, you can take in oil, whatever texture, temperature, scent, thickness it might be, soothing it into for some people it can make a difference, others not so much, and there'll be lots of different techniques we'll try. Just noticing how that is for you, checking in if anything different, just thinking of yourself. And then we're going to have a go at actually lubricating some of our joints manually by manoeuvring our body. So hopefully you're not sleeping by now, we might feel quite relaxed. We're going to bring, if anybody needs a strap, let me show you how to use the strap. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to bring one knee up over your chest, which you could do with support or without. So if it's okay to bring the leg up, you could be holding it. If you wanted to support it with a strap, just let me know and I'll bring a strap for you. But we're going to start with one knee over the chest. Does anybody need a strap? Yeah. Okay. Leave your foot down for a moment if you do. Yeah. So it's just to support the weight of your leg, particularly if you've got any back issues, you might find that just holding the leg up is going to stay heavy. And from here, we're going to just explore our joints. So you've already bent your knee. So we're just going to bend and straighten the leg a little bit. So as much as you choose to, stretching out, bending. And our knee joint is a hinge joint. So whenever we move joints, it lubricates them. It helps the synovial fluid around the joint keep the joint mobile. And then we're going to leave our knee in a bent position and taking hold of the knee. If you're using a strap, you might be holding the strap. we're going to have a go at circling from our hip. So just making a circle with your knee, because our hip joint is a ball and socket joint, so the hip will go in many directions. Having a go at circling one direction, and then reversing, going the other. And then we could straighten our leg out a little and bring our knee towards our chest. So it also acts a bit like a hinge joint. So we can work our hip in lots of different directions. Our knee's not designed to move in a circular motion, it's moved back and forth. But our hip will move in lots of directions. And then finding a position where it's comfortable to keep your leg up. We're going to have a go at moving our foot. And if it's not comfortable with the leg up, you can always do this with your foot down, resting on the bolster, flexing and pointing the toes. So again, the foot can work as a hinge, the ankle joint, and also can circle. So you might want to circle it one direction and the other direction. So you're getting that joint to lubricate, clicks and clanks are fine, pain is. So just go with what feels good for you. If there's clicking, it's probably because it's not used to doing. And then we'll rest that leg down and swap to the inside. I've got a sinus infection at the moment. When I lie down, I find it hard to breathe. So I'm going to sit up for a little bit. So we're going to bring our knee over the chest again. So we did that slight straightening, bending of the knee joint, getting lubrication with the actual fluids in the body, and you might want to picture oil going into the joint. When we've done that a few times, having a go, if it feels okay, to circle the knee. So we're moving from our hip, it could be a big or small circle, go in one direction, and then reversing that, going the other direction. And then you could do it with the knee over the chest, or you can do this with the leg down, where we point and flex our foot, so our ankle will move into extension when we point our toes away, flexion when we bring them towards it. But it will also rotate, so you can get movement through by circling the ankle. Again, remembering clicks and clanks just show lack of use. If it was painful, then you shouldn't be pushing through that. Okay, both directions with the foot. And let that release. Position where you feel as comfortable as possible. And sometimes I imagine like a bear rubbing their back on a tree, and you can have a little bit of a wriggle around, or kind of like rubbing your back on the floor, maybe rubbing the pelvis. If this feels good, it can feel a bit like trying to ease out a stiff jaw. So for some of you that might be good, others it might not feel so helpful. Doing what feels good for you. And then, yeah, taking whatever shape you want to rest. One way we can map our body is by touch. So I'm going to ask you to bring one hand and bring it over to your upper arm. Just have a little bit of a squeeze there. Again, if this feels okay. If not, you could choose a different part of your body. So you're just squeezing your upper arm, feeling where it might be softer, which parts feel firmer. And whenever we dissociate from our body, so when we're feeling really anxious, a bit overwhelmed, just coming back to your body by touching and connecting, well, this is my arm, feeling your feet on the ground is a way to calm our nervous system. So you might want to squeeze down to your forearm. Sometimes giving yourself a little tap is another way to bring yourself back into your body. So you might want to just tap your arm. And you can do this at any point where you feel a bit overwhelmed and like when you're in a bit of a fight or flight mode. This has a really helpful regulating effect on the system. It might seem odd, but yeah, tapping at any point just help you take your attention out of your head, which is often where our anxiety would feel like it's most prominent. When we're worrying about something, it feels like the tension's in our head, so it just helps us come back to your body, shifting the attention out. And then another tool that can be really helpful when we're feeling a little anxious is checking out our environment. So this room is probably the most neutral room you could imagine being in. But from where you are, have a little look at what shapes you're aware of. And in here, there's quite a few circles that you might be aware of, just checking out how many different objects within your vision are circular. And you could maybe count those or just notice the colour of them. And again, this is a great way to help us feel calm. When we check our environment out, it helps our nervous system feel a bit calmer, a bit more. And you might want to try this in a more stimulating environment later. Maybe when you're out in the countryside, noticing how many greens you see. Things. Okay, we're going to do a little bit more movement, and then there'll be some time for some questions and just a bit of time to reflect on things. But we're going to do a bit of movement with our arms next. So choosing which arm you want to move, and then all we're going to do is raise it about an inch off the floor, and then bring it back down. As you do that, notice if there's any response in the body. So for some of you, that might already create a little fear response from the brain. It might be like, oh, what are you doing? I don't like this. And things start to brace. Can you find a way to just lift your arm a tiny amount without the body responding in a way where it's trying to protect you from movement? And then for some of you, this will feel really easy. So there's no physical reaction if you've not got shoulder issues, back issues. A lot of people there wouldn't be a fear response. So we're going to carry on taking it a bit higher, maybe about a foot off the floor and coming back and just tracking how is the brain responding to this? Does it feel safe? Does it feel like it wants to protect you from doing that movement? And checking in with that. If there's any sort of response where you're bracing, don't go so far. And then we'll carry that on. So going up, maybe you could be pointing up towards the ceiling, or you could be taking it out to the side. Choosing what kind of movement feels okay for your body. You might go right the way up. Into the ceiling and back down. Again, tracking, is the body trying to protect? Does the back start to brace? Does the jaw start to tighten? Can you find that movement without any overprotective response? And then the next part could be uncomfortable for some people, so you don't need to go into this. But we could go beyond vertical and over towards our head a little bit. Or you might want to come out to the side. So going up to vertical, maybe coming up towards your ear. Checking that kind of movement out and might be absolutely fine. If at any point you feel that's enough, just come back. Find your edge with the movement. It might be fine to go sideways but not overhead. Starting right from by the hip and going up. See if you can track that. Is that okay? Okay. Okay, so don't is it like how's the other side of your students? Yeah, we're gonna do that a couple more times. And then we're gonna swap over to the other arm if it feels okay. So you're trying to track what movement feels okay. So we're gonna start with the other side really small. And then exploring that. How does it feel? And you can always do one side and not the other. I'll talk a little bit about mirroring when we come to the full pulse. So finding if you could go maybe up towards the ceiling. Yeah, it's fine to stay at the same side. And then taking the arm right overhead if you choose to, or possibly out to the side. Finding what range of movement feels okay. Notice if there's tension in the jaw, if the fingers start clenching, if other parts of your body start bracing. This will give a sign that your brain is trying to protect you from doing this movement. So that's fine, just relaxing, letting the movement soften. Maybe doing even less if you notice that response. I'll do one last move at that side. And then the hands back alongside you. Yeah. Remembering if you need to do any sorts of movements to make yourself more comfortable, if you did need to come up off the floor, that's fine. So one more movement with our arms. So this time we're going to take whichever side you started on, we're going to reach up towards the ceiling and then bring the hand across the opposite shoulder and just rest it there. Relaxing in that shape. And then if it feels okay, just walk your fingers towards your collarbone. So you're bringing your hand across to see if you could touch the same shoulder. So bending at our elbow. So your hand could be on the opposite shoulder or anywhere between there and the same shoulder. And then with your other hand, we're going to place it on our elbow. And just have a little circle over our shoulder. So it doesn't matter where the hand is on the body. Circle the elbow going one direction and then coming the other way. Other direction. And let that go, bringing the arm back down, both arms alongside you. Trying that with the other side, so the arm goes up towards the ceiling, touching the opposite shoulder if that feels okay. The arm could be quite relaxed by the body, or you might want to bring the hand across so it touches the same shoulder, finding where your elbow wants to go and then having a little swim, go one direction. So if there's any tightening against this, try and ease off a little, maybe lowering the arm, having the hand towards the other shoulder might be easier. Going both directions. And then again, resting the arms down by your side, relaxing into whatever shape feels most. If you wanted to roll to your side, some people might be more comfortable lying on their side than their back. And we're just going to take a moment. It's fine to sit up as well if you. Yeah, take a moment at the end just to allow you the practice to integrate. So there's not a lot of movement, but the body and brain are having to compute quite a few things, figure out quite a few things. So just finding whatever shape feels most comfortable for you. Sitting, lying, if anybody wants any extra support, let me know. Using anything from the session that might have helped your body or your nervous system feel a bit more relaxed. Maybe thinking about the oil being massaged in. How your body might have released after being tight in places. Or you might choose to just take your mind somewhere else. So imagining something pleasant that's happened in the last week, a moment that brought you joy or smile to your face. Reliving that moment with as much detail as you can bring to it. Your mind drifts back to focusing on the discomfort in the body, just acknowledging that. It likes to focus on it, it finds it tricky to take its attention away. And just relate it back to something more pleasant, maybe a memory, maybe the texture of the cushion that you feel, anything that brings you feelings of pleasure or joy. If we're training your mind in this way, if we did this for 10 minutes, it would be really frustrating, probably. So we keep it really short. And hopefully, the more you practice, you might get 2 or 3 extra seconds each time you practice. But for now, we're going to come towards the end of the session. So choosing, we're going to have a little chat at the end, but choosing what position might be best for you. If you want to come back up onto a chair, if you want to stay sitting on the floor, or finding whatever feels best for you. I'm going to stop the recording so we can have a bit of a chat.